Hi guys, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be looking at one of my portulacaria afras or dwarf jades. This one is one that's been in a couple videos. I think the last video was just several weeks ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, where I just kind of gave it some refinement pruning, kind of get it back in shape. It was really grown out, and I'll link the video probably just at the end when that box will pop up, just so you can go watch it. I might go ahead and put it in the description below too, just so if you want to go watch it first. But like I said, that was just a kind of refinement prune. And one of the questions I had in that video was, because my goal on this tree is to create like a dome up here to where this part is kind of flat across, and then have the dome kind of start over here and come up and then down over here. But I've got this branch here I could let this fill in, growing these branches out, this one over, and that sort of thing. Or I could wire this branch down. If I can show you here and keep my hands out of the way, but I could wire this branch down like that, and it would quickly kind of get it into the shape that I'm looking for. So I think I might look at doing that today. But the other reason I'm looking at this tree is that I want to repot it. This has been in this pot for probably 2, maybe 3 seasons, so I'm guessing it's probably got a lot of roots in it. So I think that's what we'll do first. And I've got this little bit bigger pot just to give it a little bit. I wouldn't mind getting this trunk a little bigger, the tree a little bigger overall. So I think I'm going to up pot it into this pot here, just give it a little bit more room to continue to grow. So that's kind of what we're going to try to accomplish today. So first of all, I just have this large plant saucer here that I use to catch my soil and stuff when I'm working inside like this, just so I don't make a mess everywhere. And then one of the first things you want to do when you repot is, especially if you buy a tree already in a container, or even if it's one of your own and you just don't remember, is to check to see if the tree's been wired into the pot. One way you can check, you can kind of move some of the soil away and you can kind of see some wire here. Another way to check is to kind of lift it up and see if you see wire like this. And this wire isn't holding the drainage screen in, or it would be going up through the big hole here. So what I usually do, instead of trying to dig around on the top and try to find where the wire's at, I usually just cut this on both sides and just bend it up, to where they're straight like that. And that way I should be able to pull the tree out if it's not too root bound to where, but this one seems to be stuck pretty well. So let me get another tool here. I've got this rake, and it's got a kind of a little knife, scoop, blade, scraper, whatever you want to call it, on the other end. And you can stick this into the soil next to the pot and just kind of loosen it up that way, because sometimes the roots get really bound up inside there, especially on this pot, because it's got a little lip that goes back over the inside of the pot, which isn't ideal. It's not my first choice on pots, but I think this is the only pot that I had available back when I repotted this. So, and as you can see, this pot here, it's got a little bit of a lip, which is probably going to cause a problem, but I try to find the ones that kind of either go straight up or kind of lean out without the lip. So this one won't cause as big a problem because the roots won't get up under there as easy, because it's kind of bowed out here. But ideally you wouldn't want that lip under there, just to make it easier for the trees to come out. But you can still work with it, it's just a little harder. But sometimes even if it doesn't have a lip, you still have to kind of pry at it to get the tree out, especially if it's been growing in the pot for a while. Sometimes I'll push up through the drain hole just to help work the tree out too. And when they've been in the pot for a while, you just sometimes have to really work at it and continue massaging it. It's starting to loosen up a little bit. And then if you do end up getting some of these wires exposed across the top, you can go ahead and cut some of those too, and that way it might make it a little bit easier for the tree to come out, but not always. Like I said, once they're root bound, it doesn't really matter if they're wired in or not. It's pretty stuck. So anyway, so that, cut the wires like that, and then right now there's no wire in there, but you can see it's still in there pretty good. So do a little bit more scraping on the sides. Yeah, it's really starting to loosen and lift out of there now, so that's good. There we go. And then I'll just lightly massage the roots, get some of the soil out, and then I've got drainage screen. Make sure you get that so it doesn't get caught up in the roots. It looks like some of this akadama is kind of broke down and kind of created a little matted mess here, but it's all right. And I didn't water this tree yet today, so the soil's dry, which makes it a lot easier on portulacarias to repot and do some root work when the roots are dry. And if you do any major root work on portulacaria, you want to not water it for a day or two to make sure the roots dry out, just so you don't introduce any root rot. Just trying to loosen up some of this surface soil. That's probably good. And then I'll trim some of these roots a little bit. And for root work, I just use a big pair of kitchen scissors. They're pretty durable. They stay sharp, and I save my little bit more expensive bonsai scissors for the work on the top. That's just what I do. You could use your bonsai scissors, but with some of the soil that I use, it's a lot of aggregate, and I really don't want to damage my more expensive scissors by hitting some soil. So because you're basically trying to cut through rocks, and that typically doesn't work too well. So I just don't want to introduce any nicks or dull my good scissors, so that's why I do that. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Got a nice little root base there. I don't get too hung up because I've already got the roots on top that I'm looking for. Got a nice little flare and nabari there, nothing super out of place. This one here kind of wraps in front, but I'm okay with that because it's really not overlapping anything on top of the surface, so I'm okay with the way that looks. So I think that's all the root work we're going to do for today on that one. And next we'll get the new pot ready. So let me set this tree over here. See if I can set it there without, actually I'm going to set it back over here so it doesn't fall over and break. And then to prepare the pot, I just use this netting here that I got, I think from, you know, one of the big box stores like a Home Depot or Lowe's or something. It comes in a big roll. I think the roll ends up being about that big around and this wide. So that's all I use. I don't get too fancy with it. I just cut a couple squares and then lay them in over the drain holes. And you can put some wire in. I did cut a couple small pieces of wire. So I'll go ahead and do that, but you don't always have to. Sometimes I'll just put soil on top of the drainage screen and let the soil hold the screen in place. But you can, there's two different ways. You can just wire it in this way, but the screen's not too sturdy or firm, or you know, it doesn't hold its shape too well. So that first method that I did, where you just create like a U and go in, I just created a U like this and put it through, and then this holds onto the screen, and then just kind of put these out on the bottom of the pot like that. But another way to do it is to create the little loops that you've probably seen in some bonsai pots. Is you just create a loop like this, and another loop around the other way, and that way you've got two loops across the wire the same way on each one, and just point these up. And some people will put it down like this, but I prefer to come up like this, up through the bottom of the pot here, and then put the screen over it, and then bend these over. And I do that for two reasons, and I think I'll redo this one over here the same way. But I do it for a couple different reasons. One is the loops aren't on the top, and the roots don't get wound around in the loops. So it's easier to take it off when you go to repot. And second, I don't like the sharp ends of the wire poking through the bottom. So because if I did it like this, the way this one was done, you have the wire coming through on the bottom like that. And you know, even if it's flat against it, if you're picking the pot up from the bottom and moving it around, you could poke your finger on that. Just a personal preference. And this one you're not going to poke anything on because it's all smooth and circular. So that's why I put them in that way. Hope that helped a little bit. And again, we'll do the same loop like we did on the other one. Doesn't have to be too fancy. And put my screen back in. And put that back up through the bottom. And then bend the tops down. And there, it'll hold your wire in place. So now that we got that done, now I want to look at the pot and look at the, I mean, this isn't a high quality pot, it's just a Chinese made glazed pot, but I always try to pick the best front, make sure the glaze is even, make sure it doesn't have any imperfections. So this glaze is a little uneven over here, but either side would work. But I think I'm going to pick this side for the front. I think that'll work. So next thing, once you get your screens in, I think I'm going to tie this tree in. So I'm going to go ahead and put those wires in now. And what I do is I kind of measure out my wire. If you look at the end of the pot, I measure the wire because I know I'm going to come up through these two holes here, those smaller holes, and just kind of create like a little U shape, kind of give yourself enough room if it was on the bottom of the pot and to have enough to go over the top and tie together. So that's how I measure it out. And I'll create two of those. And feed those up through the smaller holes. And then to kind of keep the wires out of the way, you just fold them over the sides of the pot like that. And we'll cut another piece. Kind of the same thing, just roughly measure it out. Better go a little bit too long than short. So you can always cut some off, but I haven't found a way to stretch this wire yet. So that one's in, and we'll just kind of move it out of the way and get the pot ready for some soil. And we'll just add some soil in here, maybe halfway or so. And I always try to keep it mounded a little bit, if I can see that without ruining the mound. I pour the soil in the center of the pot so it stays mounded in the center. And I do that just to keep so when you nestle the tree down in there, the soil will work its way up into any gaps that you have in the root base there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm thinking I might, because once I start nestling this, it'll probably come down. I want it offset to the right like that. But once I start nestling it down, I think my trunk will go too far below the lip of the pot. So I think I'm going to put a little bit more in there. And then kind of push it down, kind of get it roughly positioned. I want it offset to the right a little bit, like I said. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then just kind of push down and twist a little bit to nestle the tree in. I think that's about where I want it there. I think that height looks good, maybe a little bit lower. So I'll just keep, and I'm pushing and kind of twisting back and forth like that to nestle the tree in. I think that is going to work just fine. So we'll get this first wire up over the tree. And then loosely just kind of get it started here. And then I use a pair of, I just got an old pair of needle nose pliers here, but you could use your gin pliers if you have them, but any pliers would work. Just a little easier to do with your pliers than it is with your hand, so I'm just checking the position of it just to make sure it's where I want it before I tie it down all the way. And to help tighten the wire, so you want to grab a hold of it with your pliers and then pull and then give it a twist. And then kind of do the same thing. Just pinch in, hold in with your pliers, pull up, and twist. And that just really gets it nice and snug in there. It really helps just get the tree really snug. And I don't know that I probably do, because that does want to rock a little bit. I was getting ready to say I didn't know if I was going to need this wire over here, but I think I will. But on this one, since I've got this root here exposed, I don't want to run the wire over the top of that root and damage it. So I'm going to come out just to the side of it, just on kind of the root mass, and tie it down over there just so it doesn't damage that root. And kind of the same thing, you pull out and then twist. If that doesn't make sense, once you kind of start working with the tree and doing this, you'll understand, because when I pull, you can kind of feel everything just cinch in and get tighter in there. I think that's pretty tight. Yeah, because see, now I can pick up the whole pot and everything. So the tree is nice and snug in there. And I just cut these off, leave the part that's twisted, and I just kind of bend that and push it down into the pot just so it doesn't stick above the pot. So now we'll go ahead and finish putting some soil in. And this summer, I've used a mix like this, the soil mix, before, but I've kind of changed it just a bit. Went to akadama and lava for a while, but I'm getting so many trees now, and it's just getting really expensive to keep a lava and akadama stash. Buying that stuff, it's like buying gold. So I switched to a different mix, and I'll probably do a more in-depth video of kind of what it is, how I mix it. But the components are expanded shale, turfus, and some bark. And I really like, the trees seem to love it. I mean, the ones that I've repotted this year, I've really put on growth really well so far. So I'm liking the new soil mix, and I like the color. It's more of a natural look. So like I said, I'll be doing a video to kind of explain that in detail, kind of the ratios, how I mix it and everything. But so keep an eye out for that. So when you get your soil in here, you just want to take your chopstick and just kind of nestle in. Make sure you're going towards try to get underneath the roots, and just kind of nestle it in, and you'll see you almost create like a little whirlpool. That all the soil starts falling down in where you're nestling in, and that just tells you that it's falling down in there and filling the voids, which is what you're trying to do with this technique, because you don't want any air gaps, which would cause your roots to rot. So you just want to make sure you get it nestled in there really good. Takes a little bit of time, but this is one thing you don't want to rush, because you only repot every 2 to 3 years, sometimes more often if it's a smaller pot and the tree's really growing, but most of the time it's every couple years or so. So take a little extra time and do it right, and then your tree's just gonna thank you for it with a lot of new healthy growth over those next 2 or 3 years. So sometimes it seems a little boring and time consuming, but it's just one of those things. Bonsai isn't a sprint hobby. It's more of a marathon. You just do a little bit each time, take your time on it, and hopefully you develop a nice looking little tree. I'll put a little bit more soil in. And you can tell when you're about done, because when you try to nestle it in, it's harder to get your chopstick in. You know, it's just hitting against soil, so it's harder to push it in. So you know it's kind of filling those voids in. And again, this is just one of those things you'll get a feel for once you really get in and start doing some repotting. See, like here in the front, when I'm nestling, moving my chopstick, I've created a hole there. So that means there's still some gaps in the front that I'm filling in. I'll put a little bit more soil in here. And then sometimes I'll just tap like this, tap the sides of the pot. It causes everything to kind of settle in too. And as you can tell, I'm hitting fairly firm just to create enough vibration to nestle the soil in. But I find that works, and really, everything's nice and snug. It's not rocking too much. Still got a little bit of rock, so let me see if I can nestle some in there. Yeah, it's still nestling in and dropping in the front here, so. Put a little bit more. I think that's good. There we go. We got a nice little repot there. Okay, so I think the next step is to try to get some wire on this branch here so I can bend that down. So that's going to be my next step. And I also talked about possibly bending this branch down a little bit more too. Not sure that I really need it, but I think I might try to. So, and the reason I'm looking at that branch too is because the way I want to wire this, I need to have the wire anchored to be able to twist up and bend that down. So what I'm probably going to do is start the wire out here and be able to come in 2 or 3 wraps around the trunk up to this branch, so that way I've got one piece of wire wiring this branch and this branch up top. So that's what I'm going to try anyway. So I just kind of roughly lay out enough wire. You want to go a little longer because as you wrap around, you cover more area than the length of the wire. So you want to make sure you give yourself plenty. So I'm out that far extra there, and then I'm out probably the same up top. So that should get me to cover both branches. So yep. Let's see. I think I'll start up here because I want to make sure I've got enough to get this branch wired. Just kind of get it started. I could have pruned it first, but since I'm actually changing position of the branch, I didn't really want to prune it first, because I want the branch in its final position when I prune it. So that's why I'm not. Okay, so that's down here. This wire's pretty thick, so it's a little hard to bend. I'm trying to hold on to it to keep it anchored. Get it close to the trunk. There we go. That's going to get the job done. Let's get this one. Just trying to weed this wire through here without smashing any leaves or breaking any of these small branches up here. So just taking a bit. Okay, I think that's getting this there. Now, just trying to see what I've got going on up here, where I want to see if this is enough to bend it down. Yep. Just trying to think which one of these branches up here I want to bring it down on. This is tough once you get up into this congested area. I think that might just get that bent over. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. So let's work on getting this one out. And sometimes when it's this congested in here, I mean, you just almost can't help but either knocking a couple leaves off or smashing one, but you try not to. Just try to get that bent just a little bit. Doesn't need a bunch. I think that's if I want to bring that up one more loop, and I could maybe bring that branch down. Just stepping back, looking at it here. Yeah, I think that'll work. Just working on positioning this guy up here. that'll work. So now let's go ahead and prune it up a touch. Just kind of see what it looks like. Keeping in mind that I want to, have that dome look here. Got some branches that are kind of heading down. I've kind of created a little bit of a gap here, but it's not going to take long for these branches to fill that back in, so not too worried about it. Just another step in the progress here. Just taking some of these back. I don't want to get this. I want this to have a nice little pad out there, but I don't want to get it too tall. I want it to come out more lateral, front to back, instead of a lot more height on it. So probably take this down a little bit more. This branch is coming down. These are a little bit too long for now. This one's kind of drooping down and not really where I want it. So I want this to be more kind of flat-ish looking over here, not just trying to look at the profile a little bit more. And like I said, this thing's growing pretty good, so I'll just take some of these shoots back, and then it'll continue to grow and fill out. But I think I'm definitely happy with the repot, and the little bit of progress we made bringing that branch down a bit. I could probably even come down a little bit more if it'll allow me to without breaking. Yeah. Stick this excess wire here in between these branches, and maybe I can manipulate one of those branches over. It's just really hard because this wire is so thick, it's hard to bend it up in these tight spots. I'll take a couple of these shorter and then just kind of let them regrow. But profile wise, looking right from the front, it's looking pretty good. Like I said, this isn't the final design by any means. It's just getting it one step closer. This is growing down. We don't need that. I'm not even sure we need that this whole branch here. It kind of looks neat just seeing that all the little crooks and stuff. So I think we'll leave it. We'll take some of these shoots back though. I'm looking at it front to back too. It looks like the front kind of angles up some, and then the back is more flat, which isn't horrible because it looks good from the front. I can see, you know, a little bit of the branches underneath here. Get this little branch pointing down, we don't need that. So from the front, I think it looks good. Doesn't look horrible. It's just, like I said, it's just got that little slope, but I almost like being able to see some of the branches here looking at it from the front. So I think I'm gonna not worry about that, because I could wire this down too, but then, like I said, I like this and I like being able to see the back here. And if I brought this down some, it might hide the view of this back branch. So this is growing back the wrong way. Just pinch off some of these leaves that are close to the where the branches intersect here, just to clean the area up some. Yeah, I think that. Just bring these back. It's going down. Just trying to reposition that branch a little bit. Just bring it towards the front. I'm going to take the excess wire off though, so it's not distracting. Okay. I think that's going to just about do it for today. Like I said, the main goal of today was to get it repotted and then reposition that branch. So we did that, and a little pruning just to kind of get it back in shape, see where it's at. So pretty happy with the progress. So I think that'll do it. So let me give you a quick spin around so you can see all sides of it. There's the front. There's the left side. There's the back. The right side. And back to the front. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.